It's Wednesday, June 3, and welcome to your Barbados Today Evening News Update. Weeks of uncertainty for hundreds of Barbadians who were stuck in the United Kingdom ended this evening when they finally returned home. Around 3 p.m., they touched down at the Grantley Adams International Airport on British Airways. The chartered flight was organized by British authorities to repatriate their nationals who are currently on the island. Barbadians gained access to the seats following negotiations involving the Barbados High Commission. Upon their arrival, the Barbadians were taken to Paragon, where they will undergo testing for COVID-19. Health Minister Lieutenant Colonel Jeffrey Bostic says they will have to undergo mandatory quarantine for 14 days. He noted that they could choose to stay at a hotel at their expense or stay at Paragon or the St. Lucie District Hospital. Meanwhile, 5 people were scheduled to leave isolation today after recovering from COVID-19. Their departure leaves just 4 people at the Harrison Point St. Lucie facility since no one tested positive among the 81 tests carried out yesterday. The number of people who have recovered from the viral illness has now increased to 81. A total of 92 persons, 49 females and 43 males, have been diagnosed since March 16. Of these, 7 have died. The Best de Santos Public Health Laboratory has now completed 5,580 tests. Prime Minister Mia Mottley today warned that CARICOM countries are vulnerable to the impact of the COVID-19 and appealed for a truly global response to the pandemic. During her address at the extraordinary intersessional meeting of the Organization of African, Caribbean and Pacific States on transcending the coronavirus pandemic, Mottley again called for a global leadership initiative that brings together not just governments, but other people of influence, insisting that it is the behavior of individuals that must change.
Global recovery requires, as we have said, leaving no country behind in the recovery process. And if the necessary tools to achieve this recovery are made available to all countries, then we can at least guarantee that support. We have to ask ourselves, are we going to act as if our interests are served by maximizing profit and hoarding vaccines for the wealthy or more powerful nations? Or will we recognize that this moment requires that our best interests lie in finding a vaccine, which we will agree to mass produce in multiple locations and distribute affordably to speed up the protection of all peoples and to consequently hasten global economic recovery and growth?
There was an outpouring of grief this evening as members of a St. Philip family who were killed last month were laid to rest. Family members and loved ones of Dale Sutton, her son Keno, and 23-year-old Kyle Paris attended the emotional farewell at the Bushy Park St. Philip Cemetery. Former Member of Parliament for St. Philip North Queen's Counsel Michael Lashley, who delivered the eulogy, said he was heartbroken at the tragic loss. He particularly described the mum Dale as a close friend who was genuine and loyal. Pastor David Durant of Restoration Ministries, who officiated the service, said there was no quick fix or easy answers to the senseless loss, urging the family to comfort one another and lean on God. He appealed to the nation's youth to abandon crime and have a greater respect for life. The national women's team of the Barbados Cricket Association today extended a helping hand to thousands of Barbadians impacted by the COVID-19 pandemic. Today, captain of the senior team, Haley Matthews, presented Minister of People Empowerment and Elder Affairs Cynthia Ford with food vouchers to be distributed to vulnerable persons at this time. Ford welcomed the contribution, saying that many households have been affected.
I want to say how proud we are to have been able to identify most vulnerable households. And when we started, the numbers were small. We were targeting a 500, and then we ended up with just on 2,000. And our social workers, faith-based personnel, persons working in the public sector like the postman and the police officers and others have helped us to be able to identify so many of them who have been suffering. And therefore today we are proud that you have taken this opportunity to get some funds and to put them in place that some of those vulnerable households can get food to eat and get toiletries that are necessary, because sometimes we only say food, but when you're talking about babies, young women, and others who really require other things, other essentials beyond the food, I am sure that this wonderful package that you've come up with is going to reach many households and it will make the difference in their life.
Team manager Betty Lewis says they were happy to lend assistance.
We are very happy to be part of giving back to Barbados, especially at this time where we're experiencing something that we never had. We probably will not again, you never know, maybe in my lifetime. But we are in a position to make another family, happy and comfortable as it relates to their needs and stuff like that. So we are really glad to be part of the process, and like you say, I hope that other organizations who are listening would follow suit and reach out and help the families here in Barbados who are not in a position to be as good as some other people.
There's regional and international news after this short break.
Barbados Today, news you can trust.
To regional news now, attorney at law and chairman of a new and united Guyana, Timothy Jonah, says there's nothing the Guyana Elections Commission can do at this stage with the claims by the incumbent APNU-AFC coalition that migrated and dead Guyanese allegedly voted in the regional and general elections held back in March. He contends that GCOM's only recourse at this time is to complete the ongoing national recount exercise and declare a winner at the end of the process. He also stressed there's no provision for GCOM not to declare the results.
There is no constitutional provision, and the drafters do not contemplate that possibility. One party wins, the other party does not. The other parties do not. And I can go this far. I can say that suppose there's a tie. Suppose by some miracle 700,000 people vote and 350,000 vote for you and 350,000 vote for me. Suppose by some miracle that happens. We know the chances of that are worse than winning the lotto. There's actually provision that you go and you do it by lot. You go to the chancellor and you do the equivalent of flipping a coin. So that is catered for. That eventuality, an almost impossible eventuality, is catered for. But it is not catered. The GCOM says, on my own record, having done my work and having my record and having counted the votes, I'm not going to declare on my own record. There's no provision like that.
On the international scene, prosecutors on Wednesday leveled new criminal charges against all 4 Minneapolis police officers in the death of an unarmed black man who was pinned by his neck to the street during an arrest, sparking 9 days of nationwide protests. We get more from Reuters Television.
We're here today because George Floyd is not here.
Minnesota's Attorney General on Wednesday increased the charge against fired Minneapolis police officer Derek Chauvin to second-degree murder in the death of George Floyd, a case that has led to more than a week of nationwide unrest and sometimes violent protests against the explosive issue of police brutality against African Americans.
Today, I filed an amended complaint that charges former Minneapolis police officer Derek Chauvin with murder in the second degree for the death of George Floyd. I believe the evidence available to us now supports the stronger charge of second-degree murder. We've consulted with each other, and we agree.
Minnesota Attorney General Keith Ellison also charged the 3 other fired officers in the incident with aiding and abetting murder.
Arrest warrants were issued for former Minneapolis police officers J.A. King, Thomas Lane, and Tu Tao. I strongly believe that these developments are in the interest of justice for Mr. Floyd, his family, our community, and our state.
Chauvin was fired and charged last week with third-degree murder after kneeling on the neck of George Floyd, who begged for air. The new second-degree murder charge can carry a sentence of up to 40 years, 15 years longer than the maximum sentence for third-degree murder.
The pursuit of justice is always good and right. There's a lot more to do than just this case.
Tens of thousands of Americans have taken to the streets in cities across the country for protests that have at times led to widespread vandalism and looting.
That's news, but for the very latest, visit our website at www.barbadostoday.bb. You can also subscribe to our e-paper, email updates, or like us on Facebook, and sign up for our breaking news alerts via WhatsApp. We're also on Izumi Media and bus terminals, as well as screenplay at supermarkets and gas stations near you. You can also hear us on Mix 96.9 FM and Capital Media HD 99.3 FM.